Hello everybody, this is War Story Video Blog. Here is Tomasa Vittmana and I would like to ask him about some of his items from his own collection. Could you show us one or two your favorite items in your collection? Maybe not favorite, just what to make your soul warmer.
Yeah, be happy to. I'll just I'll show you this SA chained high leader dagger. It's in my collection. This dagger originally came from Prague. My dear friend, the late Bill Lorette, he bought it in Prague and he bought it for me. So I was lucky. It has a beautiful tiger striped grip. You don't see that very much. And the cross guards are the beautiful oak leaves with the panels on the scabbard fittings. And when I got the dagger, there was no leather on it, so we had the scabbard recovered. This is a common thing with these daggers because the leather was not under the fittings. The leather was run up to the fittings, so that the only thing that could hold the leather in place all these years was the old horse glue that they used to use then. And it dried out, so many times leather will be off of these kind of daggers, and the same is true of Hitler Youth Leader daggers. There's nothing to hold the leather on there except glue, and often we'll see them where the leather's gone. But I've had this dagger for a long time, since about 1985, and I thought I knew everything about it, because I've seen it thousands of times. And Alex and his friend Mitri came here last night, and I was showing Mitri the dagger, and he's like this. He looks at everything. He misses no tricks. And he comes over and he says, "Tomas, what is this?" And he points here. "What is this rivet on that clip?" Now, I never noticed that in all these years, but what it is, these clips have a spring inside, and it was only held by a couple of gouges in the metal. Nothing held the clip, so oftentimes the clip fell out. So the man that owned this dagger, he had this rivet put in here to hold that spring inside during the period that was done. And after all these years, I never noticed that. So there you see that there's always something new you can learn every day in this hobby. I show you the blade too. It's a damask blade like most of them are, and it has a raised inscription with some gilding. The gild is a little worn, but I like it. I've sold probably a dozen of these over the years, and they may have been in a little better condition than this one, but I like this one because it came from my friend, Bill Lorette.
And look at that work with cross guard.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful.
And tiger type of handle is really good.
And I like the patina.
Yeah.
You'll never clean one of these. Just let them... it's much more beautiful.
And very nice damask.
Yeah, it's a nice blade. It's not mint, but it's nice.
Yeah, thank you.
And then I have another item that comes from the World War I German flyers. This is called a hero's watch. And it's a silver watch, and it has the Hohenzollern eagle on the front piece of it, And the Hohenzollern eagle, that was the family name of the Kaiser, and the eagle was the family crest of the Kaiser. So this hero's watch, they were given to flyers that won the Blue Max by the Kaiser himself. And when we open this up, inside, it has the name Lieutenant Kurt Wolf, Jasta 11. Well, Kurt Wolf was the Red Baron's wingman and also took over the flying circus, as they called the Richthofen squadron, after Richthofen was killed. And Kurt Wolf was also a Blue Max winner. And when I bought this watch back in the early 70s, the man sold it to me. He said, Witman, I got a watch that I think belonged to a World War I tanker. And I said, oh, a tanker. And I looked at it, and I didn't really know much then anyhow. And I said, what do you want for it? And he said, $200. So I gave him the money, and I went home, and I thought, Jasta, I know that word. It's an abbreviation for Jagdstaffel, which is fighter squadron. So I got a book out, and I started looking through it, Jasta 10, Jasta 9, Jasta 11. Oh my God, it's Richthofen's squadron. And then I look and see that Kurt Wolf was the wingman. And I thought, oh my God, here, I bought something, the guy told me it's a tanker's watch, and here I have an absolute treasure. So I called them in.
What year was it?
About 1972.
Mm-hmm.
I called the man that I bought it from, and I said, where did you get the watch? And he said, I got it in an antique shop in Arlington. Now, at that time in America, they were buying silver coins. Anything silver you could sell for big money. So a lot of people were cashing in these things. And this antique shop was one of the places that bought silver. So I went down to the antique shop, and the man had the record of the person that he bought the watch from. And it was a woman, and he gave me her name and her address. And I went to see her. She lived locally in Arlington. And her father, who was a World War I interrogator, had brought the watch home from the war, and it had just been around the family. Nobody really knew what it was, and they just thought they'd get rid of it when they heard that the price of silver was high. And she also gave me all of her father's records that proved that he was a World War I interrogator, and I still have those. So I feel that this watch is totally documented, and again, something that someday should be in a museum. And just lucky Whitman, sometimes you really, things just happen.
Yes.
You have to live life right.
Yeah, that's very interesting stories. And another interesting piece that I would like to ask you to show is that famous Kriegsmarine dagger.
Yeah, I would be very happy to. This is a naval honor dagger, one of 18 that at least we feel there were 18 made. Not that many exist, so there's still more to find, but they were first produced for award to admirals that distinguished themselves, which two of them were presented to admirals in 1939. And then they didn't know what to do for some of these U-boat captains who had fantastic luck in the North Sea. They would sink hundreds of thousands of tons of ships. They were awarded the Knight's Cross. Then they got the oak leaves. Then they got the diamonds. And they didn't know what more they could give these capitans, U-boat. people, so they decided to award them these honor daggers. And this is an original, one of the very rare originals that exist. There's many, many copies of these, and they're very, very beautiful. The daggers have a pommel that's larger than a standard naval dagger, and they have a swastika that is set with 17 hand-cut diamonds. Each one of the diamonds is hand-cut. The grip is of ivory, and it's wrapped with beautiful gold intertwined oak leaves. The crossguard is very simple. You'll see there's no anchor. Mm-hmm. No anchor on the crossguards of the honor daggers, and that's true on the reverse too. They're both the same. And then the scabbard has a special oak leaf decoration, very beautiful, all gilded. And then I show you with this dagger. This dagger has one problem. It has a damask blade with the acorn mark on it, but what happened here, it was naval tradition that if you surrendered your sword or your dagger, you broke the blade. And that is what has happened here. And I've looked 6 or 7 times inside the scabbard, and the other part of the blade is not there. So this is all that exists, but it is what it is. So, and I'm very proud to be able to own one of these.
Yes, and it is a real story of the thing.
This was what happened.
Yes, and I told you that it looks like you can hear steps on the street, that enemy who gonna capture you, and 1 minute before it, you have to break your dagger.
It was the tradition where you could, the expression in America is save face. You mm-hmm. save face. You at least went home with something. Mm-hmm. Your pride, you know.
Yes.
And I have a couple of letters from veterans where they have told me that Kriegsmarine people told them that they also broke the blades on their naval dirks before they surrendered them. Mm-hmm. So this was something that was done. Mm-hmm. And one could imagine the admiral that owned this. He would have been born back in the 1800s and brought up under naval tradition and the laws, and he must have had great feeling, and it must have broken his heart to have to surrender his dagger. Mm-hmm. So this was all he could do to make him feel better.
Not me and not you.
Right.
Yeah. And I believe one day you can hear what Admiral Kurt, because maybe in Admiral's family there is a story about how he broke his... This could
very well be, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Because it was only 18
18 of these that were known to be produced.
Yeah.
The story on them, the first ones were produced in 1939, and Raider had them made for 2 admirals that were retiring then. And then later on, with the success of the U-boat captains, they needed something to give them, so they had more made. And then when Dönitz, who was made the Gross Admiral of the Navy, replacing Raider in 1942 or 43, I'm not sure of the year, Dönitz did not rank as high as some of the other admirals that were in the Navy at that time. So all of those admirals were sacked. They were fired. Mm-hmm. So Dönitz had these honor daggers made for those Navy admirals so that they had something to take home in their retirement. You asked me about things that I like in my collection,
Yeah.
and these are things that I feel are somewhat special. This is a cigarette case, and it comes from 1917. And most of you will recognize the Mercedes enamel insignia, but it only says Mercedes. It does not say Benz, because this was before Benz merged with Mercedes. And the Mercedes company made the airplane motors for the German World War I airplanes, and particularly for the Red Baron Squadron Staffel 11. And when this cigarette case is opened, first of all, it has a piece of paper inside, and the piece of paper is on an old map. You see, that's an old map?
Yes.
And on the other side of the piece of paper were typed the names that inside the cigarette case there is a facsimile signature of every one of these names, including Freiherr Manfred von Richthofen, who you all must know as the Red Baron. Also included are Hermann Goering, because he was a member of Staffel 11 at that time. There are also many, many famous names on there, and I'll just read some of the names. This was typed up at the time the cigarette case was given, so that the recipient, who was an engineer with Mercedes, so that he would know what all the names were because of the distinct handwriting. The first name here is Hermann Goering. The second one is Bodenschatz. Most of you will know that Bodenschatz was Goering's adjutant during the 1930s. So obviously they knew each other as flyers. The next name I don't know, Lowenhart, then von Bodien, and here's another name that we all know, Ernst Udet. Ernst Udet was also in this Staffel 11, and he was a great friend of Goering's, and Goering went on to bring him into the Luftwaffe in World War II. But as I say, all of these names, including the Red Baron, they total 21, and 6 of these flyers were awarded the Pour le Mérite, better known as the Blue Max. And these were the people that literally discovered the ways of Air Force flying that they do today, established a lot of the procedures. And if you think about it, what could be more historical than something like this? These names are very famous today. They will be forever. And here, Witman is lucky enough to get something like this.
And how did you buy it?
It's a very simple story. I was looking on the internet one day, and I got an email from a person that lives in the town next to me explaining that he has a cigarette case that his father brought home from World War II, and his father died when he was 3 years old, and he said it doesn't mean much to the family, but would you like to look at it? And I said, yes, please bring it over, and he did, and I almost fell on the floor when I saw what it was. And I told him what it was and that it was important, and I paid him a good deal of money for it because I was so thrilled to get it, and he certainly deserved to be paid well for it. I guess I could have bought it for $500, but I don't think that that's right, so I don't do that. But now I have something that I can cherish for the rest of my life. And this certainly should be something that should be in a museum someday.
Could you explain us, to me and for subscribers, about that unique sword?
This sword is not Luftwaffe. It is DLV, Deutsches Luftverband. The sword preceded the Luftwaffe sword. It was probably made in 1934. And if you look at the fittings on the sword, you can see that the sunwheel swastikas on the pommel and the crossguard are inlaid just like a DLV officer dagger will be. And then in addition, the pommel is held by a nut. So you turn the nut off to take the pommel off. Also, the grip has more ribs in the grip than a Luftwaffe dagger. The scabbard is the type with no metal in it. Mm-hmm. It's a composition material, and the scabbard mounts are held by staples, like we see on naval daggers or on DLV daggers, DLV officer daggers, where also there is no metal in the scabbard. And then the blade is produced by Paul Weiersberg. You can see the trademark. And these, there are many pictures of Hermann Goering wearing his DLV sword. You can recognize them because you'll see the nut on the top of the pommel. I don't know how many of these were made, but I would say maybe 12 or 15. And to date, there's only 2 of them that have survived. This piece of mine and also one in a British collection. I was very lucky one day. I was at a gun show, not a military show, and one of the gun dealers had saw me and said, "Hey, Witman, do you want this Luftwaffe sword?" And he threw it at me, and I looked at it, and I sort of, how much? $200, and I almost ripped my pants getting the money out. So he should have known better, but I guess since he was not a collector, he was a gun dealer, he didn't. This is one of the treasures that I got just because sometimes you're lucky. You're at the right place at the right time.
And what year it was?
This was about 1983, 84, really? Something like that. Mm-hmm. So it was very thrilling because I didn't really know what the sword was when I bought it, but I knew it wasn't a Luftwaffe sword. Mm-hmm. So I've come to really love it. It's one of my prized possessions, especially because it's in good condition and it's very rare.
Yeah. That's beautiful thing and beautiful story of
how things happen.
Yeah,
you know?
Yes. That's interesting, and I'd like every Kriegsmarine or Marine or different another navies items, because my father was U-boat officer, and
was he?
Yes, and my uncle U-boat officer, and my grandfather, you know, and I'd like Navy items, and that's very good. And you have a very good collection of Navy items. It's impressive, unbelievable things. A lot of.
I can show you one more. Would that be okay?
Yes, I will be happy.
One more really good piece. Mm-hmm. I wanted to show you another one of my favorite pieces. This is an imperial naval dirk. That was upgraded in the 1920s, where the original imperial crown pommel was replaced with the round pommel that was used in the 20s. and that is because the officer that owned the dagger stayed in the Navy during the 20s and the 1930s. But what this dagger is, if you look at it, it's very beautiful. It has an ivory grip, and it has a hand engraved oak leaves, and then in the center is a miniature of the Pour le Mérite, the Blue Max. And the reason for that is that if we look on the reverse of the dagger, it's engraved to Capitän-Leutnant Ганса Роса. Ганsa Rosa was a very famous World War I U-boat captain. And when he won the Blue Max, there were only 24 naval people that won the Blue Max, so it was very rare. When he won this award, his crew gave him the naval dagger. It says, our congratulations to our comrade U-55 on December 20th, 1917. So Rosa, he must have enjoyed this as a great gift because he wore the dagger for many years, and it also has a nice damask blade, very pretty, by WKC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very nice.
And very, very special.
Thank you for sharing with another great piece.
Again, it's only fun if you can share it with others.
Okay.
But isn't that a great piece?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thomas, thank you very much for your explain and for sharing with us with your items and for showing it. And thank you for all subscribers, and we hope you enjoyed of views Tomasa Witman's collection. Thank you and goodbye. See you next videos.